Hi there, I'm Shelby Williams with Plano City Council. At tonight's meeting, we had a relatively brief meeting, but there were a couple of notable items. First, Chief Judge Don Stevenson has retired, the Plano Chief Municipal Judge. The Plano City Council gets 3 appointments: the City Manager, the City Attorney, and the Chief Municipal Judge. So after almost 3 decades of service, Chief Judge Stevenson has retired. So we had a commemoration for him tonight, as well as renaming the North Courtroom the Don Stevenson Courtroom. So congratulations to Judge Stevenson, and we welcomed our incoming Chief Municipal Judge, Paul McNulty. So welcome Chief Judge McNulty, and we look forward to many great things from you in the court. So congratulations to you both, and thank you for your service to Plano. That was the highlight of the evening. We moved into, I'm going to bounce around a little bit here. During our regular session, we had a couple of zoning items that were tabled because of the zoning signs that are required outside the actual property. We didn't have a proper certification that those signs had been placed, and so those are tabled for a future agenda. The next notable thing we had was not notable for the zoning case, but for the council procedures. So this was a zoning request to modify the zoning for the downtown government district to permit tattoo establishments, basically. Now, the request was to permit 2 establishments by right, and any further establishments to require an SUP, a specific use permit. So it's not uncommon at all in various zoning across the city to allow certain things by right, which is just go ahead and build it, get your building permit, anything else that's required, but you don't actually need to rezone or go before planning and zoning or city council. But an SUP, a specific use permit, does require that additional step. So in this case, there is an applicant who would like to open a tattoo establishment as a primary purpose. Now, we allow it as basically what's called an accessory purpose if it's not the primary purpose of the establishment, but they'd like to open it as a primary purpose. They did a great job of going around to all the other businesses in the downtown area and other people and garnering support. I wish more of our zoning applicants would do this. Pardon me, but they did a great job. The zoning request was to allow 2 by right and then any subsequent by SUP. So a handful of us on council were, I'll skip to the chase, this passed, but it was 5-3. A handful of us were okay with the idea of allowing this with an SUP, or maybe not 2 by right, but 1 by right. And this particular applicant has been going through the process since February. And as I said in the meeting, I wanted to be fair to the applicant without requiring them to start the process all over again just to get an SUP. But I also didn't want to necessarily allow 2 by right because, or really any by right. I'd like, if we're going to require an SUP for anybody, let's require an SUP for any tattoo establishments. But what I was concerned about was if it's 2 by right, and that's what the zoning says, then it's the first 2 to the punch. The first 2 who can hang up their sign get to operate a tattoo parlor. Now, what if we've got 2, and that's what we foresaw now, but then one of them relocates, or one of them has to shutter their business, and then there's a vacancy. Then the other then somebody else, whoever's first to hang up their sign is the first to get that, and anybody else who wants to come on their heels has to go through the process of an SUP. And I did clarify during the meeting that an SUP is tied to the property, not to the individual business. So if one tattoo parlor closes and another proprietor wants to open up on the same property, they don't have to resubmit for an SUP again. It's allowed at the property, not with that particular business name. So here's where the consternation was. A motion was made to pass the ordinance as it was written, and I made an interrupting motion to amend the ordinance to basically just allow 1 by right. I wanted to try to limit it as much as possible to require SUPs in the future. That was my intent, without requiring this applicant to jump through a bunch of additional hoops. And the council rules of procedure is something we've visited periodically ever since I was elected. In fact, my first meeting, we brought this up, trying to Actually, I proposed Robert's Rules of Order, but we have since revisited this a couple of times on council and agreed to the rules of procedure. One of which, and I remember this because Councilman Riccadelli and I looked into this a few months ago when it came up again and nobody could remember. Motions to amend take precedent over any motion that is currently on the floor. So when a motion has been made, in this case to pass the ordinance, a motion to amend is supposed to take precedent so that it's an interrupting motion basically. You then switch over and have your vote whether or not you want to amend the ordinance. If it fails, then you just go ahead and take the original vote. And in this case, speaking for myself and Councilman Riccadelli, whom I spoke with after, so I know he was going to do this, we wanted to amend, or we wanted to at least have the vote to amend. And if the amendment failed, we were just going to go ahead and vote in favor of the original ordinance anyway, but we wanted that chance to vote to amend. And Mayor Pro Tem Prince also wasn't comfortable with just allowing two by right. Now, I don't know how she ultimately would have voted, but we didn't get the chance to make that motion to amend because nobody could remember what the rules that we passed were. And we were trying to say that motions to amend take precedent, that interrupts the existing motion, then you just go back to business as usual. And there was a lot of confusion. So I think going forward at every council meeting, for anybody who doesn't remember those rules that we all agreed on, we need to have copies handy. They need to be on hand. We need to refer to them. We don't need to refer to them very often, which is why I think everybody forgets. But when we do need to refer to them, it's at an important time. So we need those to be handy, and everybody just needs to be versed in those. Now, to be fair, in the annals of Plano City Council history, these rules of order, these rules of procedure have only recently been actually written down and agreed upon and codified. So it's not like there's a very long-standing tradition here, in all fairness, but we have agreed on them and we need to abide by them. So that was ironically the second big feature after the retirement of Chief Judge Stevenson and the appointment of Chief Judge McNulty. A few additional highlights, which I'll touch on. The Plano Public Library received 3 awards, 2 from the Texas Library Association, the Texas Youth Creators Award, and the Branding Iron Award. Apparently, we have won the Branding Iron Award for the past 10 years, and the question was asked, who wants to hold it? Well, it's a branding iron. So I'm not sure that would be wise, but congratulations anyway. And then third, the Demco Upstart Innovation Programming Award for creative, innovative programming in the library. So well done to the Plano Public Library and Library Director Libby Holtman. We had a lot of comments during comments of public interest about people concerned with short-term rentals. Several people came from the Plano Neighborhood Coalition, Plano, Texas Neighborhood Coalition, the previous meeting to express this concern. And tonight there was note that the cities of Arlington and Grapevine have imposed restrictions, not necessarily outright bans, although Grapevine may have imposed an outright ban on short-term rentals, and those were upheld by the courts. So I've spoken with some of these folks, and I think their concerns are well-founded, and I want, as with all things, I want to make sure that we're exploring things appropriately, that we're abiding by the law and the constitutions of the United States and of Texas, and that we are appropriately balancing the property rights of people involved. Now, I'll say, on the one hand, the idea that a homeowner should be able to do whatever they want with their property, we impose all sorts of other restrictions on that. So a homeowner cannot operate a brothel out of their home, for instance, to go with an extreme example. So there are a lot of restrictions, nor can they operate a gas station out of their home if you wanted to go to legal businesses. As was put to me quite succinctly, the people who moved into a neighborhood, they also have property rights, and they had the expectation that the house next door was not going to turn into an unaccountable party house. So we have embarked on examining the ordinances that both Arlington and Grapevine passed, and we'll be bringing that up at a future meeting for discussion. We went through this. We reviewed our comprehensive monthly financial report. So this is for March, and it just basically, it's a snapshot of how we performed, where we stand, year-over-year analysis. It should come as no surprise that our sales tax receipts were up significantly, 7.1 million year-over-year over this time last year. This time last year, however, we were just starting to really emerge from the pandemic. Businesses were starting to open back up. And so sales tax receipts had been suppressed, let's be real. And then here's, as everybody has experienced, because you just got your valuations, the average home selling price in March, although what you got in your valuation was supposed to mirror the housing market as of January 1st of this year. But the average home selling price in Plano as of March was $550,000. Yeah, that's right, over $500,000 average selling price. The average home price in Plano just a couple of years back was under $400,000. So it's fair to say, I think, that the housing market has gone crazy town banana pants. We also looked at our quarterly investment report. Now, this is the investment portfolio that Plano maintains. This is what we are invested in. Because we are a municipal government, we operate under what's called the SLY model. Stands for safety, liquidity, and yield. Basically, we're very limited in what we can invest in because we have to be very safe. We can't just go invest in the next penny stock. And in fact, we can't invest in stocks at all. We have to maintain high liquidity. In fact, we maintain $50 million in cash just as a baseline at any given time. And we look for a steady yield. Now, our investment portfolio is comprised mainly of cash positions, money markets, and bonds. Our bond investments are spread out over terms ranging from very short term to 5-year terms. We don't go for 10, 20, 30-year bonds, but we do have a fairly even distribution in our bond investments across different dates of maturity: 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And then lastly, we reviewed our 2022 citizen survey results. So the highest satisfaction was with Plano Fire Rescue. Well done. This one goes to former Chief Greif, because when the survey was conducted, Chief Biggerstaff was not yet chief. So Chief Biggerstaff, the gauntlet has been thrown down by Chief Greif. You've got a tall order to live up to, but I have faith that you will manage. So well done, Chief Greif, in Plano Fire Rescue achieving the highest satisfaction rating out of any department in the city of Plano. The highest dissatisfaction rating, which should come as no surprise, came with the maintenance of our streets. This is not because of any dereliction of duty on the part of the city of Plano staff, but because of the dereliction of our streets. Our streets have, basically the warranty's up. That's how I put it. Our streets were put down when Plano was built out in bursts 20, 30 years ago. And that's about the lifespan of most of our streets, which is why people are experiencing issues with the streets, because the warranty's up. So last year, we passed a record bond package, fully 2/3 of which went to address our streets. And we have started moving forward with that full bore, and we've been investing in a tremendous amount of street projects lately. You'll see some of it out there, including on some stretches of road. You'll see the blacktop going down. That's an ultra thin layer of blacktop, which does two things. Number one, it provides a smoother ride. But number two, from a monetary perspective, it preserves and increases the lifespan of the road onto which we put it. And so not only can we get a longer longevity out of those roads before we need to invest more money in it, but will alleviate some of the rough riding that we're experiencing right now. Now, ultimately, those roads are going to have to be replaced, and we have some $2 billion worth of roads that would need to be replaced were we to do it all at once. We are not going to do it all at once. You're very welcome. So we have to phase that over time. And even if we are extending the life of roads, We cannot make them live forever. We cannot cryogenically freeze them. And so we need to work within that. And every year, we just need to keep maintaining our roads within our 72 square miles. So with all of that in mind, we are, as always, endeavoring to treat your tax dollars with responsibility. And to that end, I encourage all of you to stay tuned and show up at council meetings. The folks who attended tonight in force, who were concerned about short-term rentals, and there were many of them, they showed up. And that is, that's the first step and the most important step. Not the only one, but it's the most important. So if you got an issue that is of particular concern to you, reach out to me, to the council. We're accessible, and come to the meetings. Make your voice heard. I'm Shelby Williams for Plano City Council. Good night. God bless.